Hey, hungry Alex.
Hey, Cole, what's going on?
Not much. Hey, you like video games, right?
Yeah, I love video games.
So I was thinking, hey, let's start a video game podcast and we just talk about video games. How's that sound?
That sounds awesome, man. I am totes my goats down, dude.
Nice. Let's start tonight. Let's do it just right now. I know I'm kind of going off the cuff here, but you want to talk about some Metroid?
Oh, dude, that's like a keyword there, man. You have my full attention.
Okay. Well, hey, Metroid Dread is coming out, what, like next month or something? It's coming out pretty soon, right?
October 8th.
Okay,
So it's coming up, dude.
Still a couple months away, but hey, that gives us time to prepare for it. I know you love Metroid, and I know you probably have some things to say about it, right?
Yeah, I'm super excited about the new game and just everything that's led up to this moment.
Okay. Well, hey, let's talk about it.
Awesome. What would you like to talk about?
I mean, okay, so I've liked Metroid. I've mainly played the Metroid Prime games, but I mean, why do you love those games? I know you've spent hours playing them. What do you like about them?
So let's start with a little backstory, I guess. My first Metroid game was Metroid Prime. So I guess I'm a latecomer to the series. So I remember we had a GameCube, and my dad, who grew up with the Metroid series, he bought Metroid Prime, and I remember watching him play, and I was just like, holy crap, because this is one of the first. Not really the first. How would I describe it? It was one of the earlier first-person shooters I can remember on a GameCube, nonetheless. So I mean, it just kind of blew my mind. It was awesome. It was gorgeous. And so just seeing my dad play it kind of got me hooked, and it's been great ever since. I mean, I played that game, and then I played the other games that came out around that time, which were Metroid Fusion and Metroid Zero Mission, which we'll get into. Mm-hmm. And then ever since then, I've just kind of jumped through time, jumping back to the first couple, and then keeping up with whatever comes out.
That sounds awesome. I mean, so that's your backstory. Why do you love the games? What about them draws you into them?
There are a couple things that draws me in. I love the use of the power-ups. I feel like that makes your gameplay unique, and it's kind of a progressive difficulty that keeps you interested, but still keeping combat balanced. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing that I love is Metroid was actually a pioneer for the genre that most people refer to as Metroidvania, which is the idea of a massive world with a non-linear gameplay that you are actually encouraged to explore areas you've explored before with new power-ups and new upgrades to reach places you could not reach before and take advantage of whatever those items are.
That's really cool.
Heavy exploration and just lots of puzzles and combat and stuff like that.
Nice. That's awesome. So, do you think they're difficult games to get into?
I think it depends where you start. Because jumping back to, well, actually, maybe that's a good. You want to just go down the list and kind of the order of the games and what they did, kind of, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, we can start there. I was thinking today we can just do kind of a general overview. Maybe another episode we do the music. We just kind of go through it. But today, let's just do a general overview. And I think you have definitely some good knowledge about it. So yeah, let's just start there.
Yeah. So I think depending on your mentality of how you play it and your patience, they can be hard to get into, but the payoff is well worth it because it's kind of with the Nintendo version, the original Nintendo version, mm-hmm. You were just given a cartridge, you were told who your protagonist was, and you were told go stop the mother brain. And then that's it. You weren't given, I love video games today, but honestly, they're very heavily guided with objectives and maps and everything else. In this one, you're literally just dropped into the middle of a dungeon and told, figure it out. Mm-hmm. And it was frustrating at first, having played games where you're guided step by step, that a couple times I pull up the wiki and I'm like, how the frick would I figure that out? But over time, it's okay, there's satisfaction with not only figuring out where you're supposed to go, but discovering new routes as you go. So, because so the original Metroid started off with. So I'm trying not to get into specifics because I will do that later. But
okay,
that one was the first one, of course, I guess. And
no, wait, what? Dude, that's
bro.
That's crazy.
Like, I know, right? Like, you called the expert. Here you go.
Yeah.
I don't know if I call myself an expert, but I do love the series. The first one focused very heavily on exploration, and just like it was just kind of like it was very simple, very clean. There wasn't a lot of information or nitty-gritty lore. It was just here you go, go get them.
You're a bounty hunter. Go, and you have an arm cannon. Just go get him.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And the game actually rewards you the faster you complete the game. And
Really?
Your item percentage. Yes, it does actually. So that's one thing that's kind of interesting. So every game, almost every single Metro, actually I think it's every single Metro game up to this point. The exception might be the Federation ones on DS that we just kind of, it's kind of the redhead stepchild. We don't talk about that one, yeah. But depending on your completion time, it might seem a little sexist, but the reward would be the protagonist would be in progressively less clothing, and if you completed it under the best possible time, you would view her in her undergarments. Which I'm not trying to say is like oh heck yeah, that's it, but it kind of pushed the idea of like this isn't just some game you can play and then you're done. You can replay it, find new routes, get better at certain bosses, and just totally nail your percentage time.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, like kind of on the subject of like beating the game, and you find out after playing, hours as a super badass bounty hunter, killing monsters, like way bigger than you. You find out, oh, I'm playing a woman. Like that was a huge deal, especially back when the first game came out. So I don't know if I'd call it sexist. I think it's just like depending on how you look at it, it could be. But I'm thinking it's just like, oh hey, this is the protagonist. You're playing a girl. Like when, for the most part, guys were the ones who played video games.
Yeah, exactly.
Back then.
I think, right. And I think what was really cool about that, though, is that wasn't disclosed at all. Like, I remember talking to my dad about it, and there were only two ways to know that the protagonist was female, and that was either you got the guidebook that sometimes came in the Nintendo Power magazines, or you bought it separately, or you beat the game, and you see her take off her helmet, and you're like, what? Like,
oh my gosh.
But I think that's so cool because that kind of destroys the stereotype like you were talking about, because like there's no emphasis on the individual. It's simply, here's a person, you're a bounty hunter named Samus, go kick some ass, go fight some space pirates.
Yeah.
And then you just happen to find out at the end, like, yeah, it's totally a female. And it's like, okay, cool.
But like they don't focus on it. It's just like she's a woman.
No.
She's capable, she's strong, she's powerful, but she I think it's really cool.
Yeah, she's just doing her job, and she is very good at it.
Isn't she known as the best bounty hunter?
She is, yes. In this universe, she is one of the best bounty hunters in the universe. At least in this universe.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you start with Metroid Prime. I really have only played the Metroid Prime games.
Okay.
So you talked about, and I know obviously, but they are a first-person shooter. Do you like the way it's set up? Do you like the HUD? Do you like the way that it plays?
Do, and I feel like I have to credit another content creator because he kind of summarized it really good if we need to, and I can maybe send you the video link if you want, but he kind of summarized it amazingly, where one of the things that Metroid is famous for is the non-linear gameplay and trying to submerge yourself into it, where you feel like you are Samus Aran, you are in here. And I think that does an amazing way of doing that with a couple simple things. Like the two things that stand out are when you very first start the game, it's a third-person perspective as you land on the space station where you start. Yeah. And it pans back and then just closes in on the back of her helmet until like your perspective suddenly shifts in a flash to you are now seeing through her HUD.
Yeah.
Your HUD.
It puts you into the suit.
Exactly. And you can see evidence of that throughout the entire game with little details that like you don't really think about until you kind of understand what's happening.
Yeah.
With the specific things are how like whenever you take damage, you see like Samus flinch, or if it's raining, you see the raindrops on your helmet. Or if you're hit with acid, you see that. Or one of the cool ones that this content creator also talked about is there's these specific.
What's this creator's name?
Let me look it up real quick. Holy shit! So the content creator's name is. He calls himself Video Game Animation Study. That's the name of his channel. And he kind of focuses on the breakdown of like different animations and how they're executed in games and how they look. But when he's not doing that, his side projects are analyzing the atmosphere of all the different Metroid games and how they do their thing.
Wow.
And it's pretty cool. He breaks down every single game and how it contributes to the overarching theme of just like dread, which is kind of ironic because that's the name of the new game. So like, that's why I'm like super stoked.
Yeah. No, me too. I mean, it's been in the works for like what, like 20 years?
That's what it seems like.
I think like Project Dread came up in like the original Metroid game, and I think there was other references to it in other games along the way.
Right. So, I mean, I personally never heard much about it, but I mean, like, the second this thing was teased, everybody just blew up with like, holy crap, it's finally happening!
Yeah.
It's happening!
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I love the idea, because I remember I was watching it was a while ago, but these Halo, this miniseries of Halo, like, short films came out. And in one of them, it showed some Spartans were going through a mission, doing their thing, and it showed inside their helmets, and it was the heads-up display of what we as the players see. And I saw that, I was like, whoa, wait a second. We are in the suits. Like, we are seeing what they're seeing. They see, like, how, like, much energy their armor has, or, like, if they get hit or not, stuff like that. So it's really cool that we are seeing exactly what Samus is seeing.
Yes.
From her point of view.
Yeah, so, just a quick thing I just looked up. Apparently, this has been in the works since 2005.
Oh wow, so yeah, almost 20 years.
Yeah, apparently like Sakamoto was originally attempting to develop it for the Nintendo DS, but he felt that the technology was too limited.
Yeah.
So he just kind of, it looks like they tried and it just wasn't what he wanted, and he kept waiting, and now the Switch is like the perfect platform for what he's going for.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, we'll talk more about it as time goes on, but I think it's really cool that, like, imagine playing it on a handheld under your covers, like at night, and just feeling that dread, or feeling the cinematic on the TV. I think, and with your sound system, it's gonna be amazing.
Oh my gosh, dude! I have stories about one of those Metroid games. Are we still sticking to just the general, or are we getting specific with the games?
Games? if you want to get specific, I say let's save like the music and stuff for a different episode. But if you want to get specific tonight, that's totally fine. Like, I think this is our introduction. I want to get as much of your personality out onto this thing as possible. So just hey, if you have a cool story or something, just share it.
All right, because like my favorite game I loved all the games. And when I finally got turned on to Metroid, oh my gosh, did I really just forget it? Good hell. Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo, because my dad finally turned me on to that. I loved it. I fell in love with it. But like, my favorite game has to be the first real one I was exposed to, other than Metroid Prime, which was Metroid Fusion.
Okay.
And that has been one that people have gone back and forth on, but once I had that same content creator, once he broke it down, I was like, oh, heck yeah, this is totally in line with what Metroid does. Because Metroid is famous for non-linear gameplay that encourages you to explore old areas. Metroid Fusion is the first Metroid game in the series, other than, I guess you could argue, Metroid Prime a little bit, if you had the hints just enabled anyways. It's the first game that is linear. It's extremely linear, actually.
Okay.
And people were kind of frustrated at first, but the content creator did a great job of explaining that because it was linear, though, and because it's kind of horror a little bit, kind of dread-based, it allowed them to do certain scripted events that had a massive payoff, had a bigger payoff than they would have had in a non-linear game.
Yeah.
Because in a non-linear game, depending on how you go about playing it, you could be really powerful for a certain event that's meant to terrorize you. But in a linear gameplay, they can intentionally put you in an environment where you are limited in your ability. Because that's kind of the whole premise of Metroid Fusion, is there's these parasites that have the ability to copy anything, like humans and creatures. And like one of the biggest like total drop, like bombshells, is you learn that one of these parasites has mimicked Samus, but at her full power.
Yeah.
Like you're told very early in the game, you do not have a chance. If you see this thing, run. It will kill you in one shot.
Yeah.
No,
I haven't played it, but I watched videos about it, and I've seen different videos just of the game, and it is actually, there's some terrifying things in there. Just the atmosphere is, I would say, dreadful.
Yeah, and you made the comment about like playing under the covers as a kid. That was me, like playing that game, and then all of a sudden one of these scripted events would happen where you're placed in a room and the music dies, and you just hear this eerie, creepy music with a heartbeat in the background and the sound of these cold footsteps, as the only light is a circle around the SAX, as they call it, the copy of you, as it's looking for you, wandering around. And you can mess up and accidentally expose yourself, and it will give chase. It will not stop hunting you down unless you find a corner to hide in. Like, it's scary as heck.
Dang, I think I was feeling some of that right now, because it was like, there's no music right now, and you're just telling me all this. It's very evocative, and it's pretty scary. I think the world building of the Metroid games is a whole nother game of its own. Like, it's just out of this world how amazing the world building is. Seeing a dead soldier, or finding a weapon that was like, where did this come from, or just how the environments were made.
Yeah, that's one thing that I also love about it, is they've done a great job over the years of playing off of different elements. In the early games, they did an amazing job of focusing on how the environment is against you at every corner, whether there's spikes or the subterranean creatures that just don't like you. And then as time has gone on, they've expanded on her actual backstory and why she is what she is, because she's pretty freaking special when you play the games and learn about her.
Yeah,
so it's awesome.
I think Samus is a really awesome protagonist. I don't want to talk about Other M, but she's a great protagonist, and I think the games are very special. I wish I would have devoted more time growing up to them, other than just the Metroid Prime games, but I've never been very good at video games. I've always just really enjoyed video games, and so but seeing you and hearing you talk about them is really fun, because I just love hearing you talk about video games, and I love seeing how excited you get when you beat a boss, or when you're talking about the music. Like, it's so cool.
Holy crap, yeah. I mean, like, side tangent, I remember bombarding you nonstop with phone calls during the Kingdom Hearts Remind DLC, and so like, I finally beat this one, and then finally Azora at the end. Oh my gosh.
Oh jeez, watching you beat Azora, and we'll definitely do some episodes on Kingdom Hearts. We could do literally a whole podcast on Kingdom Hearts, but I think we'll just, because we're talking about all video games, we'll talk about Kingdom Hearts in the future. But it's it's actually impressive how good you can get at beating the Kingdom Hearts bosses.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But I just, do you have, just as we're kind of ending here pretty soon, do you have a favorite memory associated with Metroid? Or maybe not a favorite memory, because maybe that's hard to think of. But is there maybe a moment of like when I say, hey, let's talk about Metroid? Like, there's what moment or thing comes to your mind first?
I have to be honest, and I think Metroid Prime is the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, Metroid Fusion is still my favorite, but Metroid Prime, I've played... Okay, no, I got it. It took me a minute, but I have it. And I'm sorry I have to dive into the music just for a brief moment.
You're good.
Which we can expand on later. But yeah. Metroid Prime... You said you played Metroid Prime?
Yes. I played a little bit. I haven't beaten them, but I beat number 2 and number 3. I never beat number 1.
So near the end of the game, there's the boss that you fight before you start looking for the artifacts to unlock the final area. He's just, I think he's called the Omega Pirate. I'm getting on the interwebs. Yes, he is called the Omega Pirate. That is the memory that stands out the most. Because, like, to this day, it still gives me the creeps. It still freaks me out, and it still makes me, like, almost shiver in my skin every time I do this boss fight. Even though I know exactly how to do it, and I've beaten it in record time, it still scares me.
Yeah.
And the reason why it scares me is that with the introduction of the visor in Metroid Prime, which we can go on a whole tangent about later, you have the ability to scan your enemies and to learn their strengths and weaknesses, which I think is amazing how they implemented that.
Yeah.
When you first walk into the room where it's stored, first off, it's kind of behind a frozen door, like it hasn't been touched in a long time. Like, why hasn't this been disturbed?
Yeah.
And so after you unfreeze the lock and you walk in, they're not trying to hide it. It's not like you walk into a room and then suddenly there's an earthquake and bam, it appears. No, it's sitting in a giant glass container that's like 10 stories tall, and you stare at it and you have to choose to walk forward enough to trigger the boss fight. Like, you have to choose to trigger it. And you can even get close enough to scan it and see everything that it can do to you before the fight starts.
Wow.
And like the music that starts when you enter, oh gosh, it's just so haunting as you hear it, and as you just kind of like, you have to, it's my favorite moment, because it's one of those moments where like you're not in the cutscene and suddenly bam, here you are. You have to choose to start the fight. You have to walk forward enough to say, all right, buddy, here we go. So
wow, that right there is I can't even explain that. That's a really powerful way to give the player the choice of when to start this thing, and to just give the feeling of fear, like you said, just trembling in your own skin of like, okay, this thing can do a lot and it can hurt me really bad.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Dang, that's fantastic, man. Well, hey, I'm really glad we started with Metroid. I'm glad we came up with the idea to start talking about Metroid, because that's I think there's lots of fantastic stuff that we can talk about. So
sweet. Yeah, man, I'm super stoked.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, hungry Alex, stay hungry. Always keep eating up that Metroid sweetness. And whatever you eat, I'm sure you do eat a lot
healthy
of things.
Ish.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, listeners, go out and play some Metroid today, and appreciate the music and the world building and the just dreadful atmosphere that just gives you anxiety. That's a good word for the Metroid games, is anxiety.
The nice thing, though, is that there is closure for that anxiety when you persevere. There's that release. So don't worry, it's not forever, but there's that sense of triumph as you overcome it. Well, thanks for having me, Cole.
Hey, we're gonna do this every week. I think this will be a fun experience.
Awesome. I'm super excited, man.
Okay. Well, hey, stay hungry, people. We'll see you later.
Peace out.